You are listening to Let's Be Honest with your host, Just Johnda. Hello and welcome to Let's Be Honest. I'm your host, Just Johnda, and tonight we have an exciting evening planned because we're going to get into the fun. I've got my girl RiRi back in the mix, and we are going to be talking about what the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. It is coming, and it's coming big time. So we're super excited. RiRi is now connecting, so it should be on any second. Sharita, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Fantastic. We had technical difficulties, so everybody should be able to find us if they, try and come back in again. So, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to get back to girlfriend time and talking about one of our favorite shows.
Yes.
And so it's funny because Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, it takes you on an up and down ride a little bit because um, in the grand scheme of things, these women aren't really super exciting. I mean, I guess when you add to it the fact that they're in Salt Lake City, I'm really not sure what it is, but I think that a couple of them have some eccentricities that work for television, but for the most part, the rest of their cast is really sort of supporting, and you don't necessarily care about all of them, but you do. I mean, but it is fun to watch for the people that you enjoy. What do you think?
Oh, I definitely agree. Like you say, you have a few shining stars, but the rest of them are definitely supporting cast where it gives a storyline to the supporting stars, but not memorable, all of them.
Uh,
Sorry, but they're just not.
Yeah, and it's almost like now we know on any of the housewives shows, a lot of it is manufactured drama.
Yes.
And so and we have seen it season after season. You and I are reality TV connoisseurs going all the way back to the stuff on PBS even before the Real World. So we have rode this wave to the wheels have fallen off, including the housewives and sort of the formula that Bravo decided on, or really switched to follow in the wake of the success of the Real Housewives of Atlanta. So it makes it, I think, even tougher because these shows are really just supposed to be about rich women doing rich women things, but there is what producers and the networks feel just based on the ratings, this need for drama, but there's not always available drama. And sometimes you can manufacture it and the audience will find themselves kicking and screaming, but somehow being forced to care. But some of it, like the situation, and we'll get into a little bit more as we progress through all the characters, but like the situation with Jen and Meredith and the whole thing with her son, I I honestly don't care, and I think part of that is because I just don't care enough about Meredith to care about her being all, having, as we say in the hood, having her butt all up on her back because Jen is supposedly saying stuff about her son, or really not saying anything much about her son, more or less just liking comments that other people make
That-
about her son, who, quite frankly, you and I talked about this last season. I wish Bravo would stop trying to make Brooke Marks happen, because
Yes.
because at the risk of Meredith not liking me either, it ain't happening.
Well, I think Andy appreciates his eccentricities, I will say.
Exactly.
And
Since
Andy
all
is
of a
trying
sudden
to,
we're supposed to go with the narrative of him finding himself. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not. Well, I wasn't enthralled with him from last season, so it hasn't changed this season. It hasn't.
And it's really funny, right, that they're trying to especially Meredith trying to take us down this road of um someone making homophobic comments about someone who may or may not even be gay, when that was really the whole trope that you all tried to put out with him last year. His first season, he was so over the top, you would have thought that he was auditioning for Pose. And I think what happened was he saw the way that he came off on the show. He saw that the first couple of episodes, he started out with people liking him, and really only because they thought that he was fabulous. And then later on, as the season went on, the same people who liked him didn't like him very much. So I think he's trying to take things in a totally different direction. It seems to me that all of a sudden he's trying to go a more conservative route, whereas initially he definitely was trying to lean in to the stereotypes, and I think that it came off he saw that exactly what everybody else saw was that it came off a bit inauthentic, which is what people didn't like. And I'm hearing a little feedback. You have everything turned down over there, right?
Yes.
Okay, good.
TV's down. Everything's down. Yep.
Okay, yeah, it may just be my headphones are. I'm still getting used to them. They're a nice pair, but I'm still getting used to them. Well, audience, if you don't mind, we don't mind because we know you like hanging with your girls. So, anyway, didn't mean to get started on Brooks, but that, of course, that was the very last thing we saw when the episode ended. So it was on my mind, but we'll come back to that later. So want to go, what do you think? Should we just kind of go in order and then just do character by character?
Yes, I agree with that.
Okay, so first things first, they start with what they know we all wanted to see, right? Completely out of order, not even following up on it, but they knew that they had to start with it. Which again is really funny because once the episode began, there was no reference to it whatsoever because it goes back 2 months, which at that point, seemingly nobody knew about it. Now, based on and I know you have, those of you who've listened to my other episodes, specifically the one that I did that really deep dives into Jen's charges, then you know that it is practically impossible for her and Sharif to not have known that sooner or later this situation was going to blow up. And what I will do, so that we don't have to re-explain everything, I will put a link to that episode, or at least refer to what episode that is in the show notes for this episode. So for those of you who have not heard it, you'll get a full explanation of the charges, where things are, and why RiRi and I know that just based on the pure facts, not us just speculating, but the actual black and white, that there's no way that Jen and Sharif, who many don't realize is a former attorney, had to know that sooner or later, unfortunately for them, it happened right in the middle of filming, but that sooner or later, this situation was going to blow up. It was just a matter of when and how. Because,
Exactly.
and if you notice, when she answered the phone, and it was clear that it was him who called her because she answered the phone, "Hey, baby." The only people she would have called that was Sharif or her kids. So we know who it was. So she answers the phone, "Hey, baby." She didn't seem like shocked. Now granted, she also was trying to play it off for the people around her, but she wasn't. You notice she wasn't like blown away. Even if you're trying to play it off for the people around you, if I called you and told you the FBI is at our is at the spot. Like this, let's presuppose that me and Sharita had an apartment together or something, or a business together. And I called her, or she called me and said the FBI is at our spot. They're doing a full blown raid because that's what they were, and they're trying to find you to pick you up. If you didn't know what it was about, even if there were people around you and you were trying to play it off, you would have had a bigger reaction because if nothing else, people around you are not, even if you had to run off that bus, you would have been like, excuse me, FBI? What the
What
heck?
are you
What?
talking about? Why are they
Exactly.
there? Exactly.
There was none of that.
There have been
All
outrage, everything.
None of that. All she did, and I'm sure they had to cut some pieces, but even in those initial few seconds, what we saw was her going. I'm picking up every move you make.
Oh, I
What
apologize.
Okay, what we saw was her immediately going into cover mode. Get this mic off of me, blah, blah, blah. Because obviously we didn't see her call her assistant. Now, in the news, it said it was her aunt. Where Bravo is kind of shady, and it was clear to me what they did is in that very next scene, I'm not sure what you're doing, but I can hear it. In that very
Okay.
next scene, we saw Jen Shah with her assistant. There was absolutely no reason for that scene other than for the eagle-eyed viewer like us to pick up on the fact that that assistant that was at her house that they referred to as Jen's second assistant is the same person who picked her up in that pickup truck. Did you pick that up?
Yes, I did pick that up.
There was no reason for that next scene where they showed with her and the assistant. I don't even remember what that scene was about. There was no reason for it because a few minutes later, the main issue in that, obviously was to see her interaction with Lisa so that she could tell us for the cameras the situation that went down between her and Sharif and this whole thing. So, not shocking, Jen and Sharif having. Okay, wait a minute, real quick. So, there really isn't a whole lot to say other than for those of you who don't know the reason why they were together. And there were more people in that van than we thought when you and I talked about this off camera. I mean, on the side. It was Jen, Heather, Lisa, Whitney, and even the new girl, Jenny, was there. So it looks like the only person who wasn't there was Meredith. I feel like everybody else was in that was in the van or in the production van.
I'm
I don't
thinking I don't remember seeing
well
Meredith.
see
Now that you
well
pointed out, yeah.
I wrote them down as they showed them, but what I'm thinking, because I saw the pictures when everything first happened, maybe they by the time the phone call came in or maybe shortly thereafter they picked up some more people because they definitely said that Meredith was going to meet them where they were going because they were actually, of course, they didn't give any backstory to where they were going or what they were doing, but they were actually on their way to fly out for their cast trip. That's why they were legit together. It wasn't some setup. They were at, I believe if I recall the story, they were at Heather's place, her spa place. And Jen, who funny, was literally on Instagram minutes before because she was showing that her glam squad had just put in her box braids. Like literally, I even saw the Instagram that morning. Her glam squad, she was like, "Oh, check out my box braids." Her glam squad finished her up, and I guess they were doing her in one of the rooms at Heather's place. So when they were walking out to the van, you saw Heather, Lisa, and Jen. And so that's why everybody thought that it was just the three of them. But as the scene went on, when the ladies started talking, when it said 12 minutes later, and you saw the FBI like roll up like a movie or something, you saw that there was more people as a part of that conversation because then remember there was Whitney there because Whitney is the one who went on Google and told them wait a second, it just popped up on the news that Jen, blah, 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 blah. Because, I mean, we all remember that day. Everything was literally
Mm-hmm.
unfolding in real time. Her being on Instagram, then the whole thing, them walking out, and then they were like, there's a warrant for her arrest. And literally a few minutes later, the whole thing about, her getting stopped or whatever. So, and like I said, they said that there was an aunt. So what we didn't see, because of course, they weren't gonna like drag it out because some of it is just sort of white noise. But what we didn't see is that when Jen got the call, and of course, as we saw, she told the person to take off her pack. Who I couldn't tell whether or not that was Whitney or if that was a production assistant, because Whitney's hair was different in the scene, so it was hard to recognize Whitney because of the wavy hair. But anyway, they took off her pack. So what we didn't see is that Jen asked them to stop the van. She got off the van and she called for someone to come and get her. And she told them that she had to go because like Sharif was sick or whatever. She told them basically it was a family emergency and I got to deal with it. She didn't tell Bravo, the FBI is after me. So whomever in her family picked her up, Bravo, because this was already on the internet, if you figure if Whitney found it, some of their people had probably already gotten an alert because, of course, they're going to do Google alerts on all of their cast members. So when Jen got into the car with the assistant and maybe one other person into the pickup truck, the Bravo vans, which was very smart, instead of them continuing on to the airport or whatever so that they could fly for the cast trip, the production van followed her anyway, because I guess, which if I was producing the show, I would have done the same thing, because you figure if there really is a family emergency, you're going to get some good footage of it in real time. And if it's something like really interesting, then that's something you use for the show. So they stayed behind her. So that's why the Bravo cameras were actually there when the FBI pulled up on her, because she, I guess, didn't expect that they were going to follow her instead of continuing on to the airport. So that's what happened. They didn't give us anything else other than Whitney telling the girls, wait a second, I know why this is happening. Look at Google, whatever. And then they say 2 months earlier. So first person we go to is Jen. And we see that Jen's got a new spot, girl.
Yes, I did notice that.
She has a fake Shah Chalet 2.0. And it's so funny because you see where they have watched and seen the stuff on the internet, because you notice that she was sure to mention that the lease ran out on the last one, because she knows that everybody knows it was a leased house now, so she's going to play it, you notice she played it like it was no big deal, like, oh yeah, it was a lease. Heifer, you didn't want everybody thinking that was a lease, because if you're leasing a place, why would you call it the Shah Chalet? She was fronting like that was her house, but she had to perpetrate, she like it was no big deal. So I thought that was a cute little catch. Now, that being said, the closet was everything.
Yes.
The
But
closet was everything. What did you think?
did you expect anything less than from Jen, though?
No. No, you're right. Although she gave me a cute little idea though, because you know how they give us the dust bags for our bags, but I noticed, and I'd be interested in maybe you and I doing some little research between now and the next episode, so we could tell all our besties listening to us. I'd be interested in what's better for your bag, the dust bag or the way that she had it. You notice that several of her designer bags she had in zipped up plastic bags, like the kind you get, the kind you take to a football game so they could see your stuff. You know how you
Yes.
can't carry a purse. Did you? I noticed several of her bags were in those, and I was like, well, that's cute. And also then you can see your bags, kind of like when you get the clear containers for your shoes.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So I was wondering, I was like, I wonder what's better for your bag, the dust bag or one of those. I mean, dust bag for obvious purposes, but if the bag is leather, does that make a difference? So I was like, we're girls, we notice stuff like that. But so Lisa comes over, and I'm gonna leave this to you. Okay, so Riri, tell us about the bombshell that she drops when Lisa comes over.
Um, I may have missed that one. I apologize, but I was flipping back and forth to the VMAs to see Lil Nas X. I'm sorry. I think I missed it a
Oh,
bit.
well, then you must have missed the Lil Nas X performance too, because he performed before the show came on. I actually saw it. I
He was
actually,
at like, yeah, he was at the end of the last one. I think who else came on? I was flipping back and forth. I apologize.
unless he did multiple performances, which is
No, he
possible.
just did the one. He did Montero with, and the other song with what's his name, Jack Harlow. But
Okay, yeah,
I
I
digress. We're
actually thought that
digressing.
it was. I actually thought it was a good performance,
Oh,
and
it really was.
I'm sure that Boosie is somewhere where his head exploding. Because he's obviously like so pressed that he seems like he's practically in love with Lil Nas X. So anyway, so Jen tells us that she and Coach Shah almost divorced 6 months ago, or 6 months before the filming, which pretty much would have put them, based on when we know filming took place. Well, we know that it's pretty interesting because we know that filming was going on last spring. We know that her indictment happened in mid March. So 2 months before mid March would have been January. Well, they had just done the reunion about 2 months before that, because remember, they filmed the reunion when the show is almost about to end, because they want to make sure that the women have seen it, so they're mad at each other.
Yeah.
So if their reunion, let's say they filmed their reunion, like actually filming it, not showing it, they filmed the reunion somewhere around October, November, and this scene between her and Lisa was filmed um in January. That means 6 months before would have been sometime in the summer of 2020, which means that by the time they filmed that reunion and Coach Shah was there with her and loving on her and whatever, the situation between them that she told Lisa about had already happened. It didn't happen in relation to them filming the first season, because the first season was actually filmed in like 2018.
Yes, I
But
remember that.
yeah, but the reunion was did not get filmed until the show started airing. So the reunion was filmed in the fall of 2020. So whatever went down between her and Coach Shaw, which would make sense, happened sometime during the summer of 2020. And the reason why it would make sense is because that would have been when they were quarantined together, and he would have been stuck in the house with her, and
Mm,
whatever they were going through, like most couples who are divorcing now, was amplified when they were stuck quarantining with one another. The difference is that he and her decided to stick it out, and it probably is in large part, especially because of the religion. Because he apparently, maybe not so much her, but he is a devout Muslim.
yes.
So I thought that that was interesting in terms of the timing and what we know about how what was all going on in real time. But she said now they're in couples therapy, which is great. It makes sense. I think it speaks to the fact that Coach Shaw is not like your typical just a jock and toxic male, all of that stuff. Plus, he is very educated, and because again, he's not only uh, whatever degree he got in undergrad, but he's also an attorney. So he has resources and has been around things like counseling and therapy and things like that. He works at a university, so he knows, like most people who are somewhat enlightened, that if him and her are going to stay together, especially since their kids are I don't know if both of them are grown, but we know at least one of them is, and the other one is probably well on his way out the house. If y'all gonna stay together, you don't have the kids or anything as a buffer. You're gonna have to try to figure out how y'all gonna do this. So, but she said she talked about her issues. There really wasn't anything new with the issues that Jen talked about. At least I didn't think so. The stuff with her dad, and all of that. And I don't say that to downplay it. I'm just saying it just wasn't anything new. And then of course they talked about the stuff with her and Meredith. I don't foresee, and of course the previews kind of bear that out. I don't foresee that something like that would ever be resolved, especially if the person feels like, and I get it, as a mom, it's one thing for you to come at me, but if I think that you're coming at my kids, um, no matter what my kid may or may not have done, if you're a mom who thinks about your kid as always being a kid no matter what, um then that's a different thing. And I don't think it's the same as, how like when Kim Zolciak's daughter used to come at Kenya. And I think most of us agreed that Kenya was totally justified in when she came back at Brielle, number one, because Brielle was coming at Kenya for no reason whatsoever. And two, Brielle was good and grown.
Yes.
So
Oh,
so that was a completely different situation. You were inserting yourself in something you had no business being in. And quite frankly, Kim never had a real reason to be coming at Kenya the way she was.
she
Kim's
didn't.
beef with Kenya never made any sense. So for her daughter to jump into it, who was good and grown and was vicious about it, I think most of us agreed, no, you on your own with that one. With Brooks, I didn't necessarily, and I'm sure Jen didn't either. I didn't necessarily like that whole thing where he was trying to make it seem like Jen practically assaulted him with the whole alleged vagina episode at the house. I still don't believe he saw it, but even if he did, it was totally unintentional, and I think that he was doing way too much with that. Um, and then of course that everything snowballed from there. But all of that notwithstanding, even though she may have taken that as him throwing a shot at her, it was not that. It wasn't all that big of a deal. All she had to do would be like, "Okay, boy, you ain't see my stuff," and then keep it moving. And I also think that if some of the stuff on the internet that she was liking and whatever, if some of that stuff wasn't regarding his sexuality, even though he's the one that kind of made it a thing with the way he was acting, I also think they wouldn't think it was that big of a deal. I think the problem is because the stuff is related to his sexuality, and despite how flamboyant he was last season, it is clear that Meredith perhaps has not quite come to terms with it and is living in the land of denial, as it relates to how the way that he behaved was going to be perceived by the public.
Exactly.
And but all that being said, I think it still comes back to the same thing, because as far as Meredith is concerned, Jen took a shot at her kid. I just don't think that is any coming back from that, especially since however much of a big deal doesn't think it is, because she may think it's perfectly harmless. It happened multiple times. It clearly bothers him, and because it bothers him, it bothers his mother. And that's something that you just can't fix, especially if she is not taking ownership of it, even if she didn't mean it, and apologizing to Brooks. And Brooks is also seems to be the type who wouldn't accept the apology even if she did. So it's just never going to be fixed. Lisa, I never thought I would agree with Lisa, but I actually do. I do agree with Lisa, and I don't agree with Lisa. I don't agree with Lisa trying to force the situation between Meredith and Jen. To me, the more you try to force it, the more each of them are going to think you're taking the other one's side. They're not going to like each other, then so be it. They know that they're going to have to film together because they both signed on to this show. And however it works out when they're all in the same room together, let them figure it out. So I don't agree with her continuing to get into it. However, the one where I do agree with her is I absolutely believe that Meredith being friends with Heather and Whitney is no different than in terms of how that would make Lisa feel as Lisa being friends with Jen. I think Meredith is splitting hairs to try to say is no big deal. It's not the same because it involved because the situation with her involves Brooks, whereas Lisa is just Lisa. If I feel a mofo was coming at me and disrespecting me, then you don't get to tell me that that's no big deal because it's about how I feel about it.
Exactly. Well, that's been the whole big thing from I didn't get from last season when Heather and Whitney wouldn't admit to say, you know what, we picked the wrong time to say what we told you. It was in love,
Mm-hmm.
but you're right. It was the wrong time. It was supposed to be a joyous celebration, and we told you something that we knew could potentially. It's like the owning it. So they
Mm-hmm.
just won't own stuff. I get annoyed with all of them because they have a hard time owning something. Just own it.
And on every episode, and I hate saying own it because we know that that Lisa from the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills was why is her name going out of my head? One that's married to Harry Hamlin.
Oh, Lisa. Oh God, what's her name?
Okay, but now we've both drawn a blank. But with the
Lisa
lips,
Lisa Renna.
Lisa
Renna.
Rinna. Lisa Rinna
Yeah.
is always the one that's saying own it. So I hate to say it because I know that that's her line. She's always like own it, and I can't stand her, so it's hard. So it's well, I can't stand her on the show. Obviously, I don't know her as a person, but so I hate using that line in the Housewives context because it sounds like we're the Beverly Hills girls going own it. But yeah, I to me I think it's the same thing. I feel like if somebody who you're cool, if somebody comes at me and and I feel like not only did they come at me, but we're still not cool because of what what they did, and and as Lisa felt, they insulted my integrity and whatever. And remember, we're not even Lisa fans, but fair is fair.
Exactly.
So if they came at me and you're still friends with them, and I'm not tripping on you about that. I might feel some kind of way, but because I don't want to affect my friendship with you, I have to just put the wall up, and we just have to have the understanding that you can be friends with whoever you friends with, but if I find out that you telling them my business or anything like that, then we gonna have a problem. Or if somebody tells me y'all sitting in the room and them heifers talking about me, and you don't at least say, look, you ain't gotta like her, but that's my friend, so you're not gonna talk about her in front of me,
Exactly.
then we're gonna have a problem because and because at the end of the day, you're tripping off the fact that I'm friends with somebody who you feel came at you. I mean, granted, they did it through your son, but same difference. Either way, we both messing with people that the other one doesn't like, and either we gonna live with that, and and of course in the real world these worlds wouldn't collide. I mean, because I have had a relationship where everybody was cool, but me and the other person, one of the people, things went however they did, but neither one of us stopped being friends with the rest of the people in the circle. And because it's the real world and we're not filming a show, unless it's like a party or something, we don't do things together. They don't do things with they don't do things with her that they invite me to, and vice versa. But because this is a show, you're going to have to film together, and that's my issue with Lisa. You know that these heifers going to have to film together, so let them work it out however they work it out when they film together. If that means that, like most of us do in the real world, when you don't mess with somebody who just happens to be where you are, and you just maturely ignore them, then so be it. Or in the case of a reality show, the producers are going to make you interact so that you can have drama. But for Lisa's purposes, again, still not a big Lisa fan, but I do think in her own way, her heart is in the right place. But she, even if somebody was to try to broker a truce between Jen and Meredith, Lisa is not the one to do it, because as we saw later on at the Shabbat dinner, Lisa's too pushy. You know what I mean? Like, didn't you think she was a little too pushy with Meredith, especially when it was clear Meredith wasn't feeling it?
I've always found Lisa to be a little pushy with Meredith. It's like it's almost that Giselle slash Robin thing.
Yeah,
Don't even get me started on that.
girl. And don't get me wrong. I think that Lisa is a little pushy. Period. I think it's
Yeah.
fine. I think it's fine when she's in her professional setting, because she's obviously a go getter and is successful, and so she gets things done. So that assertiveness works. But that level of assertiveness does not always work in interpersonal relationships, especially when you're dealing with someone who is not as assertive as you are. We know that Meredith is not a very in your face type person. It's when she gets angry is almost uncomfortable to watch, especially since the only thing on her face that moves, her and Lisa, is literally the bottom of their face. I literally rewound that scene when they were going back and forth and watched it again. Both of their faces are so um just
So much
paralyzed.
Botox because it got so
Yes,
much Botox in it.
that
Yes.
exactly, that not only do they not make expressions and whatever, but neither of their mouths move, or nothing on their face moves from the top lip up. Even when they were talking, you know how when you talk your whole mouth moves, your top lip goes up, your bottom lip goes down, and you're making shapes so that if somebody was reading your lips, they could read your lips. In their case, a lip reader wouldn't be able to read their lips, because literally the only thing that moves is the bottom of their faces, like the game thing we used to have when we were little kids, where you flip open the head and play the teeth. That's the way their mouths move. Speaking of Botox and fillers, Jen, woo!
Yeah.
I took two pictures. I haven't decided. Maybe I'll use one this week and one next week, because they were both so good. Have pictures. You know how I use them for our advertisement for the show on Instagram. And I got a great picture of Mary, because Mary always makes the craziest faces when she's doing her diary. So of course I got some.
Yes, she does.
Oh my God, because she always does like the bug-eyed thing. So I got a good shot of her. But Jen's face, it looks like she already has Botox, so of course her face doesn't move. But Jen has gotten a lot of fillers. Her face
Yes.
looks like it's a whole different size. Now we know that they film these after the fact. That's why they're wearing the same outfit, or maybe like sometimes two outfits. So it is possible that there may be a bit of weight gain too, especially if maybe she's stress eating with everything going on. But I don't think that that's necessarily weight gain, because her body pretty much looks the same. That is the fillers, because maybe they felt like they wanted to even it out, but it just makes her whole face look bigger. And the thing is, when they showed those pictures of her and Sharif back in the day, oh my God, she looks like a completely different human being.
Yes.
She literally looks like this person ate that person. And I'm not talking about because of weight gain, because we can tell that Jen is very tiny. I'm talking about like the way her face is, probably from all the fillers. Her whole head and face looks like it swallowed up the little head and face of the woman in those pictures. And Sharif, because of course we know men, the disgusting creatures they are, don't age at all. He just looks, he pretty much looks the same, but just with some nice older man weight on, and it still freaking looks good. In fact, to me, Sharif looks better.
Yeah, his little weight gain. Well, it's not much. He probably put on about 5 to 10 pounds at
Yeah,
most.
it's that nice older man, weight because he doesn't even have a belly. I'm like,
No.
I can't stand you. Men, they just, it's kind of like if you go on a diet and they go on a diet, they lose 20 pounds in 2 weeks. You still struggling on the first three.
Exactly.
Yeah, they suck. And then, brothers, they age well anyway. If a brother takes care of himself and lives good, he gonna look good until he is in the casket. So jerks. Speaking of looks, I gotta hand it to her because I don't usually like anything she wears. I like that cute little brown outfit that Meredith was wearing when
Heather came over. Yeah.
yeah, wasn't that cute?
Very cute.
I
I'm
said
actually
because
I have
first
my
they
audio
showed the
down, but
pants.
I have the audio down, but I'm watching the replay now. So I'm looking at it like that is really a cute outfit.
Yeah,
Yes.
I don't know if I was necessarily feeling the shoes. Like I liked it with heels. I just didn't like those particular heels because it looked like a really expensive outfit with some cheap shoes that you bought just because they were the same color.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole thing, and I said, oh, let me find. And then when they went from the front, I didn't realize until like I think it was hard to tell because she was cleaning up. And then when Heather came open, she opened the door and you saw that it had a brown bandeau top underneath. I said, let me find out. But we know that Meredith, because she does the jewelry thing or whatever, fancies herself a fashionista. That's why she's always wearing the feathers and stuff. The problem is that she seems to be the only person who likes her fashions.
Yeah. This one though, it was a hell. I did actually like this brown chocolate brown one.
I'm telling you, that's the only
It is.
outfit she's ever worn that I liked. Like literally ever, because her confessional looks are always a nightmare too. Because
Yeah.
because this outfit she wore this time, oh my gosh, she looked like I can see it in my head, but it's going to be hard to explain unless you watch Bugs Bunny. And there's this pink creature, and Bugs Bunny was doing the creature's hair, and it had
Yeah,
the
when he was doing the hair, he put the
and it's got the
rollers
fluffy
in.
boa around. Yes,
Yeah.
that is exactly what she looks like. Oh my God, we are showing our age. But if anybody ever saw it, if you one of our girlfriends and our listeners, because we consider all of you all who listen to us our girlfriends and guy friends, then you know the episode that we're talking about. So they have a new house. It looked nice, but to me, Meredith's new place looked like it's cool for because it was beautiful. It looked like it was cool if you're staying there for a ski weekend or a week or something like that. It's still, but again, it's Meredith. It looked very stale, very whatever. It's like if it's just going to be her basically living there by herself, which is pretty much the case because her kids are basically grown until Seth is there. I don't know that I would it almost looks more officey. I would be a little depressed. Although at the same time, when everybody was there when they were having the Shabbat dinner, then you got a little bit more of a home feel. But that's because you have the house filled with people. But maybe it was just the way that it looked when Heather came in. I just thought the most interesting thing in the room was the brown outfit. And it looks like her and Seth are still doing the same thing. He's
Yes.
still out of town. Yeah. I
Well,
think it works.
doesn't Seth stay in Ohio or Cleveland or wherever Ohio? I'll say for a better word. Like Monday through Friday, it sounds like he only comes home on the weekends, right?
Yeah, and she said that he was going to work things out to spend 50% of the time there because remember he was there even less than that. So I guess maybe and you would figure they probably figured out with COVID you don't necessarily have to be there all the time because with COVID one would assume he wasn't going back and forth as much. He was either here or there because that would have meant he was constantly on airplanes during the pandemic. Heather, much of the same. We really didn't see much of Heather the episode. I mean, what we saw of her was not a whole lot different than what we got last year. And I mean, no hate because we want some normalcy, but it just was pretty much her talking about wanting her daughter to have a normal college experience. And I get it because we know what Heather's been through in her life. She's actually been very open about that. And, she just wants things with her daughter to be different. I get it.
Yes.
And I'm inclined to agree with her as long as if your daughter wants to go away to school as opposed to being home like her friends and stuff, and especially considered the kind of sheltered community they came from. That's actually it sounds like that would actually be a good thing. And if she's willing to go away, and we know Heather can afford it, so that's not an issue because her kids, remember, it's with when it comes to her kids, they not only have the fact that Heather makes the bomb living even without being on this show. Remember, she said she married into Mormon royalty in terms of money.
Yes.
The family is millionaires, so her kids are set regardless. It's wonderful that she is doing well for herself, but the kids are covered. Now Whitney is the one I want to get to, and it's
Yes.
not so much because her scene was all that. Clearly, she was drunk as hell, and her dropping that cake had me
And
dying.
picking it up about 3 times.
Oh my god, that was so funny. And because I was like, well, she has the cake on a cake thing.
Oh,
Why does it keep falling? And then I realized what we can't see because obviously we're not there is that her hand must have been shaking because she was drunk.
yeah.
Remember, they took like a gazillion shots.
Shucks. And
Not
she's trying to carry the knife. Like she should have did 2 trips. She was trying to carry all the
yeah.
forks and spoons and plates
But
in
the
one
only
hand.
way she would have been able to get that cake out there without it falling was like if she was being super careful carrying it with 2 hands. I think
Hands.
that the
Yeah.
fact that she was clearly lit is was really part of the problem. And I just think from the angle of where they were
Mm.
filming it, we couldn't see that her hand was on some shaky dakey joint. She hold that cake. It was a cute scene though. That was so
Oh, it was
funny.
really cute because she dropped it, and then she still brought it out like all janky looking,
Which
which I
makes
thought was
it even funnier to me.
funnier.
And it to me, it was a perfect bringing Whitney back because this is what we like about Whitney. She can be a little messy or whatever, but ultimately, she's still the
She's
chick that you
fun.
want to go to the party with.
Yeah, she's the fun girl. She's the fun one of everybody. That's why end of last season when she started getting messy, I was like, oh, I loved her for all of last season until she started getting messy. I was like,
Uh-huh. But
don't
just
get
still, when
messy.
she comes back with the funny stuff, you're like, okay, I'm
Yeah.
gonna let you have it. You on the show, they want you to be messy. Plus, by the end of the season, she probably was advised by each of them had their producer. Girl, we like you, but the show hasn't aired yet, so we don't know how the public is whether the public gonna like you. So you need to give us a reason to make sure if this show get a season 2, you come
That you
back.
coming back. Yep.
Okay, and you not Dion Snow up in this mug.
Yep.
So now this is where the reason why I was bringing up Whitney in particular is I assumed that because he was older than her and both of them were married when they got together that he had kids, and I think she maybe even referred to that. Now I
She
don't
did.
recall
Hmm.
I don't recall us knowing how that they were like 23, 26, and 29 because I mean her and the oldest are literally 5 years apart, like give or take 1 year, and they could have straight up been in high school together. And if they all went to private school, which I'm sure a lot of them did, hell, there's a possibility that at some point they were in school together and didn't know it. Because, like she said, some of her friends from high school, and that would make sense because she would have gone to college. She would have been in her first year of college when he was a freshman, which means that if she was friends with anybody that was sophomores and juniors, they were in school with him.
Yes.
So they would have some friends in common if they went to the same high school. So, but anyway, this is the part that is interesting to me. Did you know last season? Because I feel like I don't know what planet I was living on, but I know I watched this show very closely and you and I were reviewing it. I do not recall for the life of me that Whitney had kids, let alone two.
Yes. No, I remember she had
Did
the 2 kids.
see? I don't, and maybe because they, unlike all of the other women, her kids were truly never a part of her storyline, and it could have also been again, remember, it's their season one. They're filming it. It's not on the air yet. For obvious reasons, it would not shock me if her and her husband didn't have the greatest relation. Her and her ex-husband didn't have the greatest relationship in the world. So, I guess my question is, well, I have two questions. I got to look at. I think between now and next week, I have to go back and look at the history of their relationship because I can't. I think there might even be the possibility that these two kids are her current husbands instead of her ex-husbands because they're young. The boy is 8 and the little girl actually looked like she might be younger than the boy. And if I recall the situation with Whitney and her husband, when we saw them get married last season, that was like them doing like a remarriage,
Vow renewal, yes.
a vow renewal, but they had already been together for a number of years because when she first got with him, when she was working for him, I feel like at the time she said she was in her early 20s because she
Yeah,
had
she was like 22 or 23, 24, fresh out of college, basically.
exactly because she
Yeah.
had one of those early marriages like Heather did because remember her and Heather are cousins, so they would
Yeah,
their
the
families
Mormons, yeah.
yeah, their families made them do the same thing. So it's so there's well so there's it's actually possible that both kids belong to this husband instead of the ex-husband, but and if that's the case then it wouldn't be any issue with them not wanting them on camera, because if I recall correctly last season Whitney's husband was not in very many scenes with her either. Whitney's storyline revolved around
Her
her
dad.
yeah her interaction with the girls, and then outside of her interaction with the girls her dad and her brother, right? She had the
Yes.
brother who because the brother didn't feel the same way about the dad, so that
Brother and a sister, but the sister only came by that one time when they had like a dinner
yeah.
party for the dad. Yes.
I don't recall her husband being in the mix. I think when they had the couples trip, I believe Whitney was there, and I think her husband was there because I think the only person who was there without a husband was Heather, and because all of them are married except Heather, and
Mm-hmm.
then Mary, of course, didn't really come to very much. So yeah, so maybe that's it. If the husband wasn't really in the scenes, then she didn't have the kids. But if they introduced the kids, it must have been early in the season because last year, because I did not remember she had kids. I wrote in my notes, Whitney's got kids, and then when it came up again, I was like, Whitney got 2 kids. Like what the hell? So now let me get to your best friend.
Mary.
Mary Cosby. Girl, I know you love you some Mary. That's Mary crazy, is it? Mary's still crazy.
Yes, she is, but she got better wigs this year. Yes, Lord.
Yes, Mary,
Better
which is
wigs.
and remember I told you the wigs thing was bugging me out even last year because I told you that I had to connect that had shown me where Mary used to work in the hair salon. So I was like, what? So Mary is doing a podcast, which you know now we're gonna have to find. So so Mary is doing a podcast. Robert Sr. conveniently has been in Florida for 6 months. Robert Sr. spends an awful lot of time in Florida. You would think after
Mm-hmm.
okay, you would think after what happened with the grandmama dying and them thinking he had something to do with it because she died in Florida. So I guess they must have a house or something there because when I remember even from the grandmother dying story and that all happened like 20 years ago or whatever. um he was in Florida because him and mama Roseman was down there for however many months. And that's why the family claimed, well, when she went, she was healthy. Then all of a sudden, y'all in Florida for however long months or whatever. And then all of a sudden, grandmama died. So that's why they tried to blame him. So, hell, if I was Robert, I wouldn't want to go to Florida no more. So, and then you want to just stay. You could tell him and her just,
They
it,
married in name only.
yeah, I mean, obviously he got what he wanted to get out the deal because he got to prove that he laid up with her since he had a son with her, and then that was pretty much it. So anyway, 6 months he's down there. I was cracking up when she said she started talking to herself. I was like, we all talk to ourselves, but something tells me you were answering yourself back. So, and girl, please explain to me that hoarding mess that's supposed to be her designer clothes and stuff. I don't get it.
Well, she's the only person that thinks she's fashionable. She's we talked about Meredith's fashion. I think honestly, or not Meredith.
No, we
Yeah,
talked about Meredith. Yeah.
yeah, it was her
Yeah,
fashion.
Mary's, you're right. I forgot about Mary.
Mary's
Meredith,
fashions. Ooh.
oh my gosh. Because Mary just throw a bunch of labels together just so you know that she has.
Exactly. She buys labels, but she's not buying the good piece because we all know, as any label, they have their more popular
Of
pieces and
course.
they have pieces that didn't sell as well because somebody took a chance and it wasn't a good chance. And
Exactly.
she's buying the not good chance pieces that probably she ain't admitting is on the markdown somewhere, but she buying them.
They not right off the runway, even though that's what she wants you to think. And then
No,
she always putting on a pair of tights with them.
she just doesn't. I'm hoping this season, maybe, I think it's like everything. When they see themselves after the first season, they usually pick their game up by season 2. Because right now, with her filming the podcast, she does look a little bit better. Her makeup's better. Her wig's better. Thank you, God. I'm like, I'm
But
sorry.
Mary with the clothes thinks that the clothes she has are cool.
No, they're not. Well, she dressed. Wait, I don't want to offend the church people.
But she dressed like a
But
church person with money.
she dresses like a church person with money. That's the Romans outfit. She dresses from the Romans catalog. I'm gonna leave it like that.
Exactly. Just a mess. But then she had to, because you know you had to see the Tom Ford. But then what was those little flower heads? I said, now what designer is that? With the heads, with the I was like, oh Mary. That's where you just gotta shake your head and go, bless her heart. So they're at the place of the podcast. The one guy's grinning just worked my nerves. And girl, how about when she interrupted him with the prayer? She's like, yeah, you ain't gotta do all that. I was like, oh snap.
Oh,
Did she
Mary got
just
a smart
interrupt
mouth.
him in front of the, yeah, she do. Mary got a real reckless mouth.
She got a real smart mouth, and
She does.
which
We
amazes
saw
me
that
that
last season. Yep.
season. That's what I'm saying. Like, she really says stuff, and it's like, yeah, she just comes off with it like, wow. Especially when she was directing the choir last season. I was watching they repeated the whole last season leading into this season, so I was watching a good portion of it today, and stuff I missed before. I just started laughing. Mary's funny though. She is funny.
Yeah, Mary's mouth is straight reckless. I was like, she said, let me show you how it's done. I said, did she just show him how to pray? But at the same time, that shows that even she know that they be doing stunts and shows, because if he's that into his prayer where he is already at the and the Lord and he's getting ready to do a full-blown Pentecostal 30-40 minute
And they call
prayer
he's hooping.
with
He's hooping and
speaking.
hollering.
Yeah,
He
he
almost
was about to get in the speak, because you know if she had let him go any second, he would have started speaking in tongues. Now, but yet when she goes, no, wait a minute, stop. He's able to stop on a dime without any residual, like, dude, I thought you was in the spirit. You ain't still feeling. Yeah, this is like, okay, real interesting, bruh. Um. So anyway, she talked about how this part was like 50% sad, and as with Mary, still 50% weird. When she says she never fit in the world, she was never liked and didn't really feel like she was loved fully. And that's why she doesn't trust human beings, and says that she was born for God. Now, I felt for her when she said that, because there was clearly something that she was lacking, and and when it comes to you feeling like that, whatever it is that you felt like you were lacking, that wasn't your fault because you were a child. There was something that was lacking coming from the people who raised you, not giving you whatever reassurance you need, letting you know that the fact that you were different, or if you notice, that man must have known her for many years because he spoke up and said peculiar. Like when she said I was different, and he was like peculiar. And I was like, oh. And so clearly whatever reassurance that she needed, that being different was okay. But as you and I both know, her family was between the church and the businesses and doing all this stuff. And especially in the church in particular, and you are part of the church family, it wasn't okay for her to be peculiar. She probably got in a lot of trouble for being peculiar or different. So I could feel her on that because given, just what you and I know about that environment, no, it wouldn't have been okay for her to be different, even if it was just that she was a little odd. So I mean, because that is never okay to be different, like if someone's gay or something. So heaven forbid she might not uh been gay, but she was still odd, and that wasn't okay. If you're part of the first family of the church, you're supposed to present as we want you to present, and she didn't, because like she said, she was different. So they talked about smoking weed. I thought that was funny because I kind of felt like either there was some real funky editing during that scene, because it was obvious to me that when she asked them about what kind of drugs they used to use, that one guy said more than just weed, because it was, you heard him say weed, and then it was clear that they cut him off whatever else he was saying. I was like, yeah, weed ain't the only thing that dude's been on. So next, did you notice that with the editing during that scene?
Yes. Well, I've noticed that with the whole Real Housewives change.
Oh yeah, there's been
Sometimes
some
you could
real
tell.
funky editing. A
Yes,
lot.
I've noticed that.
Yeah, but in that scene, I said, yeah, he didn't just say we. They saved him from everybody knowing his business. They like, look, this
Hmm.
show ain't about him, so we not gonna let him embarrass himself. Next we have Miss Jeannie, who is 45. I get the impression that I think we're gonna like Miss Jeannie.
Oh, she's spicy, and I like that.
I like that too, and I like that we got some education with Jeannie and her husband from the jump.
Hmm.
It was a little random how Lisa led into it. It was clear the producers wanted her to like kind of help Jeannie give us more of her background. So it was it was a bit of a very hard segue that made it clear that there was an agenda to get her to tell her story. But however it came out, I thought that was very interesting. I liked the fact that she was very like cool about it, like, yeah, we were both people, this is how we did it. The thing that her husband talked about with the thing underneath, I didn't know that sounds freaking scary as hell, and I can't imagine that some unfortunate tragedies didn't happen with people at the bottom of those boats, because it's not like they were ships, they were boats. So that was really interesting. And how she told her kids about being poor, and she was just like, you don't know poor.
Exactly.
And I loved that little nugget, that little girl, first of all, a face just as round and cute as it could possibly be. And she said, we are A kids, not B kids. I said, you better tell them. You better tell that little privileged monster sitting right there. You're like, no, we get A's. That's what we get. We're A kids, not B kids. I said, you better do it. So 14 years married. He's a chiropractor, obviously does very well because they live well. Did she say whether or not she worked or she stayed at home? I feel like they that wasn't clear, or if she said it, I kind of missed it because I was trying to take notes. Did she say that she did something outside of the home, or did they pretty much just focus on the husband?
They just focused on the husband.
Okay. Oh, I now this is the part I was like, ooh, when she said when she met him, she liked him from the neck down. I was like, yeah, I like her because she keeps it all the way real. She said she liked him from the neck down, like in terms of his looks. Because remember, she said he had a nice body, and then she said, got to know him. I like that her face looks normal. That her face doesn't look overdone, because I was concerned. Remember, I mentioned her to you. That I thought that she had a ton of surgery to the point of looking like a doll baby, but apparently from it, that was just super ridiculous. What do you call it? Photoshopping on the picture, because on the show I did not think she looked overdone in terms of getting the work done. And if she's had work, it was good work. What did you think? So, Sharita?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh no, I was talking about the work that she's had done. I was saying I didn't think that if she had work, it was good
Oh
work.
no, no, she's flawless at 45. Her skin is beautiful. Like I like her.
Yeah, and but when I saw the pictures they put out of her, they did a terrible job in terms of making her look overly photoshopped.
Is this the promotional pictures that they usually show for the
Yeah,
beginning of every season? Okay. No, I didn't see those yet.
yeah, I saw it because I even talked about it, and I was like, because I don't, did I put it on the FNDD? I must not have put it on the FNDD because you would have saw it, but I guess I must have been talking to somebody, and I was very disappointed because I was like, okay, this woman's face has been altered to the point where it look almost look like a stereotype of like a little Asian doll, but
And porcelain doll. Yep.
yeah, little porcelain doll, but apparently that was just somebody a little overzealous with the photoshopping because they got to I think is the problem is they got to do so much photoshopping to all those other women's bad plastic surgery that they photoshopped her and she didn't need it because if she's had work done, her doctor is the bomb because I thought she looked great, and if
Oh,
she's
she
had
did.
stuff done, then it's what do you call it? Did they did made it look very natural.
Oh no, she did. She might have done a filler here, something there, but if she did, it's very subtle. It's not over. It's not. Yeah, her face ain't cement yet, and I pray she doesn't get there because she really doesn't need it.
Yeah,
Because
she doesn't. And she's
I'm gonna be
45.
honest,
Like, you don't
to
need
be
nothing done to your face.
45, but to be 45, she doesn't look 45. So
No, she
that's a
doesn't.
compliment in itself. Yeah.
Exactly. And you know, some people of color, and she is definitely one of them. And Jen, had she left her face alone, they kind of age the way we do if they live well.
Mm-hmm.
So, now let's see. So for the ladies, Mary, Heather, Whitney, and Meredith went to the igloo. I love a lot of times when Mary goes with them because a lot of times it seems like yeah, she has her quirky moments, but if they make it about her, but if they don't make it about her, you could tell she just sits there watching them like they're a television show. So Heather orders like me and you. She orders for the real women. Like Heather proved why I could go to dinner with her because she was a foodie. She was like, just give me everything on the left side of the damn menu because I'm hungry. Um,
Yes.
she was like, we'll have the roast beef, we'll have this, we'll have that. I am sure, again, because of editing, there based on what we how we saw Heather ordering, there's a whole lot of food that came to that table that we didn't see. So, um, this I think was one of the first times I really paid attention to Meredith's confessional look because they talked about her losing her dad. And
Yes.
again, oh, the make everything about it was bad. That she loves pink, obviously. This is her prerogative. But the ponytail and that particular type of ponytail, she is too old for it. Or rather, her face, because of the surgery, looks too old for it. The makeup was very garish. There was kind of like it looks like there was a yellow with the pink with the makeup, and then like I said, the pink dress is like the Bugs Bunny thing. I just, but her confessional looks were very weird last year too. um she talked about losing her dad, and we know that several of them have lost their dad, so that's just tough. Heather makes a comment that I think it may end up being the title for me this week for this episode. She talked about getting caught up in Jen's friendship juice. Girl, when she said the friendship juice, you know what that made me think of too is the friend contract that Cynthia had with Nene.
Yes.
But when Heather says she got filled up, that Jen gives her so much friendship juice that she got filled up on it, and Mary was like, I don't want none of that juice. She keep that juice right over there. I said, you know what? Again, Mary with the dingers. Mary's going. She's a weirdo, but she gonna give us some dingers.
Oh,
Um,
she get him right in at the right time.
Yeah, Meredith, as always, and I get it, she just lost her dad, but even when she talked in other things, like even when she was talking to Lisa, between that nasally part of her voice and just her affect being so like, I'm gonna say the same thing I said last season. My feelings haven't changed. Meredith, I'm not saying she is people. I'm simply saying that she operates and presents in terms of the way she speaks and her affect being so like she makes me think she's on the dolls. And I mean, the whole time I'm like, how many of them did you take and what kind? Because if it, I feel like I need a dosage a little bit, not quite as much, but I might want to try it out because she be lean back in the cut. Even when she is arguing, there's still an element to her where you're like, I'm still not quite sure she's there. But and really pretty much at that part, both what you really got from that scene in the igloo and pretty much right through to the Seder, which I thought was very nice. Everything looked beautiful, but ultimately really not much to see there either.
No.
What we got, and part of it too is because again, I just don't think Meredith doesn't give me enough to care about her for the amount of time they spent on her. I think what's going to happen with this season, even though all of them claim that there's a lot more drama that goes down other than just the Jen Shah thing, I think that they are going to benefit, which very well, and they earned it. They absolutely earned it. They're going to benefit a lot from being on Sunday night, and and that's going to be really important to them because I think that they are going to have a lot of filler working their way up to the Jen Shah stuff because what these women consider to be drama is not drama on the same level as the women from the other shows. None of them, as a group, like some of them are have relationships individually. Like for the thousandth time, we know that Lisa and Meredith have been friends for 10 years because Lisa keeps saying it because she doesn't want to lose that friendship. And we know that Whitney and Heather are cousins, although given their age difference, something tells me they weren't super duper close. And plus, Whitney was more or less excommunicated after the situation with her marriage, and Heather's marriage just ended not too long ago. So, between their age difference and the church thing, I doubt that Whitney and Heather were truly close. So, these women, other than a couple of individual relationships, don't have real relationships with each other, not and certainly not relationships that lasted years. The shows that have done the best in terms of whether it's drama or just different things they have gone through and helped each other through it, those stories were compelling because those people had authentic relationships. Even Kim and Nene, they were real friends in real life. These women are not. And because even after they got to know each other, they still didn't become friends because for the most part they don't like each other. Most of what happens between them is manufactured because unlike women from like the Housewives and stuff who at least became friends in real life, they don't have a true interest in one another, so they don't know anything that goes on in each other's lives. Like, how does someone's parent die if somebody is supposed to be your friend and you not know about it? And you're finding out about it only because you're filming and their parent died X number of months ago. That's so these women don't have real relationships, which makes it a little harder to watch. And we know, whether Meredith admits it or not, she's aggravated about the fact that Lisa's friends with Jen, just like Lisa's aggravated about the fact that she's friends with Heather and Whitney. Of course, I think we will see that her relationship with Heather, that Lisa's relationship with Heather and Whitney will, I think that they'll be okay because they never were really friends in the first place because Lisa always thought at least that Heather and Whitney were beneath her.
Yes.
So I don't think she ever cared that they were. that they weren't friends. She did. I think Lisa's issue is more about the fact that Meredith is friends with them as opposed to the fact that they don't like her. I don't think Lisa gives a damn that they don't like her because she doesn't like them. She doesn't like the fact that they said stuff about her that she didn't feel was true. But at the end of the day, these are people that she would never be friends with or deal with outside of the show. So I think although she's never going to say that, Lisa's primary issue is really just the fact that Meredith is friends with them.
Exactly.
So it's because Meredith was supposed to be her girl. The thing with Jen, I think again from Lisa's standpoint is strategic. She knows that Jen, at least last season, Jen is the show. And so it makes sense for you to try to keep that relationship going with her. To keep her on the show because, like Andy Cohen says, even no matter who the person is, if nobody will film with them, that's going to impact whether or not they can keep them on the show.
Exactly.
So Lisa is strategic and she's smart. She knows you can't lose Jen, and also that if you can be friends with Jen, you're going to get more scenes.
Yeah, and that's funny too because that's why I mean ultimately Monique was from Potomac was invited back, but when you only had like one person willing to film with her, like you said, you saw how it affects their stay on the show when only one person will film with you.
Exactly. Now I think Ashley would have, but ultimately it still would have made group scenes difficult. I also think that there well it's just really it's an interesting dynamic with Potomac because the way that they are going after Wendy probably would not have happened if Monique was back because they would have all still been focused on Monique because Candace would have been focused on Monique and Giselle and Robin would have used the fact that Candace was so focused on Monique as an excuse for them to be focused on Monique, especially after her and her husband eviscerating all three of them. Well, really not so much Candace. They just let Candace cry, but certainly, getting at Giselle and Robin in particular. And Robin put herself in the line of fire at the reunion
Yep, should have kept
because
her mouth shut.
had Robin not said anything, nobody was paying her any attention because nobody ever really does. Like even this season with the situation with Wendy, if she didn't open her mouth, it would have been no shots fired at her. Wendy didn't come in the room with any intention on saying anything to Robin. She came in the room with full intention and focus on coming at the person that she came at, which was Giselle. Because even with Ashley, when Ashley told her, she's like, okay, I'm not even gonna go there with you, whatever, you just a messenger, I know who this came from, and she left her be. So but anyway, so yes, ladies, we keep up with the show, although I don't necessarily watch it religiously. All right, so that is all we have for tonight. I think once it got towards the end, it got a little filler, and Sharita and I probably gave this episode more than it deserved. The beginning, it gave what it was supposed to have
It
gave,
was a continuation of
but
last season, so you saw what they were doing. It caught you up from what they did from the reunion to now. So it served its
yeah,
purpose
and
to be the introduction. I expect more to come.
yeah. Yeah, I think that and it's what Bravo does, it's what any show does. I think that that little trailer, not the trailer, the although the trailer had people hyped too, but not the trailer. The first look that they released, like the first 7 minutes or whatever, had people hyped for something that they actually weren't going to
Not
get
tonight.
because that what they released the first 7 minutes or whatever basically covered that whole scenario of the stop, the van, that whole thing. And so it had people hyped for that, when if you watch these shows, and not just Potomac, not just Salt Lake City, they all do it. It's kind of become their formula for literally every Housewives shows, I would say they've been doing that since at least the last 4 seasons of every single show, where if there is a big event that happens that's going to pretty much be what everybody ends up talking about, they will start with that, and then the rest of the show is kind of like which one of Shonda Rhimes shows did she do that with? Oh,
How to Get
How
Away
to
with
Get Away
Murder.
with Murder.
Yep.
Yeah, that's, I mean, that's and that has been consistent on every Housewives show, particularly if they have an issue for every season. They will
Stripper
start with a big fight,
Stripper Gate.
stripper gate, whoever Teresa Giudice throws something at. The season before with the big the what was that, a couple of years ago, where they had that big fight on New Jersey, where old girl like tried to, the last season that Danielle Stahl was on, when they had that big fight at the table and the candles and all of that. That's how that season started, and then they were like 3 months ago.
Yeah, because they lead up. They show the big incident that's going to be the main point of the whole season. They lead
Which is
they lead
crazy
up to it, and
because
then they
we're
show
going to
the
get.
aftermath of it. Yep.
Yeah, but the difference with this one, which is again, is a good thing that they're on Sundays, because they've got the Potomac lead in to help with their ratings. Because if they were on
Wednesday night,
another
like it
weeknight,
was last season. Oh,
again, they would. Well, first of all, the lead in for that was terrible, because it was OC, which had nobody anybody wanted to see, and even with that, they managed to be 10 times as boring. But so a part of them was a lead-in problem, because really Salt Lake City did not have that many episodes last season, because it was a first season show, and they really only had maybe about 4 filler episodes out of what, 10, 12. That's actually pretty good,
yeah.
because Atlanta gets like 20 something episodes, and literally they've gotten to the point, especially since their crap is just the same stuff over and over, where like if they got 20 episodes, 12 of them are filler. So they actually did pretty good, especially for a first season show, unknown in a place like Salt Lake City, and on top of that, where there's only maybe 2 characters that gave you a reason to watch it. But I think what the problem is with this, the difference with all of those other shows in this is, and correct me if I'm wrong, because you again watched them like I do, is that when there is a big incident that the season is going to end up sort of revolving around and whatever, because to some degree some of the other women are involved in it, for the except for the Erica Jane thing. But even that, she told them she was getting a divorce, so they knew she was going through a divorce, and they were asking her about it and talking about it. And then the big newspaper article came out, and then of course it progressed and got even bigger from there. So there was still some progression to the story, whereas, well, and I think it's going to hurt this one with them starting so big with that, is that until they get into the aftermath, where apparently, as we see on the previews, there's going to be some questions with some stuff with Meredith, which I think is all a red herring. I don't think, because in real time, we would have heard if any of the other women were brought in or subpoenaed or anything, but whatever. Um, with this, it comes out of the blue for everybody, even to a certain degree, Jen and her husband, because, like I said, for reasons that will make sense if you all go back and listen to the other episode, there's no doubt that they had to know that there was the possibility that there was an indictment against her that could possibly come or looming. They still didn't know for sure, because it was a sealed indictment. So even if they wanted to find out if there was something coming down the pike, they wouldn't have the guts. So the feds definitely kept the fact that they were watching her and investigating her and getting her other people to flip on her on the low. However, the other people that she was working with were arrested in 2019. So if the people you're working with were arrested, and then you can't do work with them, then obviously you know that the walls are coming down. It's just a matter of time as to whether or not you're going to get away with it. And of course, you hope that the more time goes by and nobody ever comes to get you, that you did get away with it. Because those people were indicted in the fall of 2019 and the other people were indicted in 2017, and here it is 2021 and still nobody is bothering you. You think that you might be home free, that your people didn't talk, and that you're straight.
Mm-hmm.
And not only did they not come at you, they didn't come at Stewart either. So there's a certain amount of security in that. But despite what may have been going on in her home, my point is that everything related to the Jen Shah thing it does not have anything to do with anybody else until it all blows up. And of course, just like with Erica Jane on Real House of Beverly Hills, you have sort of an ancillary involvement and interest because you're friends with this person that is charged with this major thing, and you don't want somebody looking at you like you crazy, just like we saw with they already showed how Lisa's like, I ain't taking that heifer's calls. I ain't mad at Lisa for that either.
Yep.
So, especially again, when we're talking about the fact that these crimes have victims, just like those ladies be saying to Erica Jane, like, yeah, your life is jacked up, and everything's changed for you, and people may think you did this and that, and we know you're unhappy, but we can't really feel all that sorry for you when you sitting up here at the table with us on the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills when the particular crimes involved had actual victims. And in Jen Shah's case, in my opinion, is worse because in Erica Jane's situation, the people who are the victims, now granted, it's terrible, but they had law settlements, legal settlements from cases that they didn't get. So it's money that you never had that you didn't get. It's owed to you and it's yours and it's dead wrong, but you didn't have it in the first place. In the case of Jen Shah, they're defrauding people out of money they have. Senior citizens who are, using credit cards and whatever they don't have to do this scheme that you're sucking them into, kind of like the whole LuLaRoe thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's and it's hundreds of people in the Jen Shah situation. So, but anyway, it back to the original point. It doesn't involve everybody else until it happens. So, if there's some other drama or some other stuff that makes these women interesting, they better either hop to it or within the next 2-3 episodes just give us whatever little BS about Mary and her church and whatever that little scene is they showed with them arguing about who's going to be friends with who at the outside in the snow or whatever it is, and then jump right into the criminalities of the situation, because really that's the only thing everybody want to see. So other than that, we are good. Is there if we had to grade this episode, what grade would you give this one? You first, Sharita.
I'm looking at 7. I wasn't overly. It's the first episode of the season, so I'm optimistic that we'll get some 8s and 9s and 10s. I just gave it a 7 to 8, 7.5. Let me give it a 7.5.
You know what? I'm with you. I'm gonna give it a 7 because they gave us what we wanted with the strong start. They knew that we wanted to see the Jen Shah thing, even if they didn't give us the whole thing. So I'm gonna they got points just for having the balls to do that, even though they knew it was gonna not be related to anything else in the whole rest of the episode and probably even the next 5 episodes. So I'm going to give them a 7 for at least giving us exactly what they knew everybody was tuning in for. And also because at least right now I'm feeling Miss Jeannie. So Jenny, is it Jeannie or Jenny? I think it's Jeannie.
Or Jeannie? I'm not sure.
You know what? I think it's Jenny because I wrote down Jennie.
Yeah,
So
that's how it's
yeah,
spelled. Yeah.
Jenny. Okay, so I'm feeling her, so I'm gonna give it some points for that. Get some. I'm gonna give them some points for that brown outfit that Meredith had on, um, and the scene with Mary in the podcast and her cutting off the dude praying. That ish was funny. So there was some boring parts that made me say again, they're lucky that this is on Sunday, so they're getting the Potomac lead in. So yeah, I'm with you. I think a strong seven, and if for no other reason, because they gave us exactly what they knew we were tuning in for, even if it was only 6 or 7 minutes long. So they gonna have to do better coming up, because we know that issue isn't gonna be something that comes up for a while. So I guess we'll have to see what these producers and editors come up with. All right, guys. I know this was a little long, but this is our intro coming back, and yeah, I think we gave this episode way more than it needed, but thank you for hanging in. And for those of you who, most of you obviously, are going to be hearing this on the recording, this is what we're planning to do unless one of us is traveling, that we are going to come on. So if you want to hear it live and be here in the chat room so you can interact with us, we're going to do 10:15, maybe 10:20ish. Tonight's episode ran until the episode didn't end until 10:15,
Yes,
right?
that's when they started. Watch
Yeah.
what happens live. Hmm.
Yeah, so I mean, if so, that was the only reason why we started late. And usually we only go for about an hour, but tonight we were still doing like some of the backup analysis. But we are so excited to be back. And if there's any other shows you think we should be watching and maybe want to talk about, let us know, because again, this is what me and Sharita do. She is like my only friend that watches as much television as I do. So so even when we're not on here with you, Riri and I are going back and forth either via text or whatever, or even on the FNDD talking about this stuff. So, and by the way, if you have not watched the LuLaRoe 4-part documentary on Amazon Prime, please watch it, because we are going to be doing an episode about that. I have someone who's all ready to come on, and I actually have a girlfriend who, when I initially met her, because we are in a group for women in small businesses, who was doing LuLaRoe. So I'm going to touch base with her to see if she's willing to come on as well. I'm sure she will. She's cool. So it would be interesting to see how she felt about the fallout as well. So other than that, if you have Apple iTunes, please go on there and leave us 5 stars and a review. If you want to keep in touch and follow me, then you can certainly go to my social media at Let's Be Honest JJ. That's LETSBEHONEST JJ. That's on Instagram and Twitter. There's also email, let's be honest JJ at gmail.com, if you have any stories you want me to talk about, any questions, or even anybody that is connected that you want me to interview. Certainly get that information to me, and we will get that all set up if I think that it works for the show. And beyond that, you don't have to listen in one place. I am wherever you listen to podcasts: Amazon, Verbal, Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Acast, TuneIn. I'm sure there's one I'm forgetting, but chance. Oh, and Google, and I'm on that as well. So, and Sharita, say goodbye to the
Good night,
peoples.
everybody.
Okay, so we love you, best friends and besties. Definitely come back next week to our girlfriends and guy friends, and we are signing off. Okay, Sharita, you notice I got the happy music back. That sounds like we're in Salt Lake City. All right, girl. Talk
Talk
to
to
you
you later.
soon.
All right. Bye.
Bye bye.